hair. She's 75%. Am I right, Bill? Right on that, Jeff? 75%. She'll be 75% water billing, 25% heritage under this scheme, I think, right now where we're looking at.
If I'm right that she's, if I'm right that that is a 50-50 allocation, I'm not sure of that. If it's 50-50 and we move 25 of 50 back, it's about a 63% allocation to water.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I could even go another 5,000 if we had to in that one.
All right,
okay?
that's what I wanted to know.
That's what I would say. Another 5.
You would recommend or feel comfortable?
I would recommend with another 5 because
10 to 15,000.
See, I wasn't sure on the salary levels or that, so I'd be happy with 15 even if it was justified. But Jeff said he can revisit it next year. We may find that I know Phil and I were just chatting about it yesterday after one of our mini meetings, and I think we need to revisit it because we may be looking at a situation like Sabrina with Communities in Bloom. You know what I mean? Where Sabrina comes and does in lieu of time. You know what I mean? Instead of an actual staff position, part of her job is, but the bulk of it's done by the volunteers now anyway. Your Worship, I had a question since we are going up there. Under grants to organizations, I'm wondering, I suggested maybe looking at the Mayor's Fund going back to 2,000 with the idea that anything over 250 comes back to council. And I'm wondering, since the mayor hadn't used it very much and it was obvious that there was a chunk of change there, and I'm curious why we didn't go that route, because I think that I would much rather see us take that 3 out of that and then rather than cut, because that $5,000 from my experience goes very quickly. That $10,000 extra dollars that we have for grants to organizations, we do use. In fact, it usually exhausted or come close to it. And this is what I was kind of throwing that out on that one.
The answer to the why, I guess, is the why question, is that when Jerry and I went through this, we said, okay, let's look at the big chunks, and we looked at 5,000 or more, but ultimately it's your decision what you do. So I'll just proceed.
Yeah.
And you guys, I mean, your discussion, you can figure this out. But, all right, so where was I? I was Heritage. Sorry, I did change Heritage based on the discussion here on the board here to 15. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right. Frost Park lights, reduction of 10,000 in there. A reduction on Candy Cane Lane of 15. A reduction in general Christmas promotions of 5. Those are all on page 23. The Waterfront Development Corporation grant, a reduction of 40.
You just want to shrink these couple columns. That's not shown on screen.
Oh. Okay, well, let's... Okay, we're good there? All right. Thanks, Jerry. Moving down to events, a reduction of 10,000. The budget was 40 there, reduction of 10,000 in events. Under investment readiness, which was one of your priorities, a reduction of 10. Reduction of tree removal of 5,000. A reduction in tree planting of 10,000. And in the mayor's comments in her feedback was that there was a program, you felt, your worship, where trees might be available.
Well, TD Bank, Bev always is asking, you know, can we do more tree planting? They have a program, and they do it. I think so we just have to look at that. Councillor Lanto, go ahead.
The issue with the TD is that there's only one type of tree, and it's usually not fits in. There's some issues with the typical tree. It's good, for example, areas like Broadbrook, etc. A lot of our tree planting that we have been doing of late has been more of the flowering, the fruit trees, etc., which are costly. Now we have started a tree nursery out at our facility, and that's now coming online. And I believe, if I remembered exactly, last year Rodney said they actually started using some of those trees now for our facility. So I have no idea like how far along we are with the nursery, but what we've done is Communities in Bloom started the nursery, Phil, 5 years ago we started it, I think. 4 or 5 years ago, and what we were finding was that a lot of the trees the town was purchasing weren't really tolerant to the climate, the salt, etc. So we were taking shoots off of our existing trees, I believe, Sandy, is how we were doing it. And the idea was to take trees that we knew would survive in the area well, and we were replanting them at our facility, you know, basically near the compost facility. We have a small little nursery we created. And it's from that, these shoots are growing quite well, and we are to the point that we should be able to. Now, I would love to see us expand on that, because we really should, because it was just an experiment, and with all due respect to Rodney, he took it on like a little personal project, I think, and Dave was kind of curious about it as well, but that's something we may want to look at down the road, actually create our own sustainable nursery out there, because there's nothing to it. You're just planting them in the ground, and staff keeping an eye on them every so often, give them some compost, and bang, we're going to have some fairly good looking trees, and we can control the trees. So it's something worthwhile looking at.
Yep, Councillor
Plus, we
Mooney?
have a Communities in Bloom meeting this afternoon. So we can check with Rodney on that. I don't know, I know we're trying to diversify the trees that we have in our new tree farm, but if you look at some of the state of some of the trees around town, there's going to be a lot of work done over the next several years, and maybe that's something we can talk with the TD people, Your Worship, with the
Yeah.
talk to Brett Bev or whatever, see if they do have varieties or anything else.
Good idea. Go ahead.
Okay, Your Worship, moving down the page, Beacon Park, reduction of 5,000 there, and again, that was supported by Mr. Ernst. Building maintenance, a reduction of 5,000. Marina professional fees, there was a question about that, and we had
Yeah, what
identified
was
that
it?
that was an area that wasn't used at all last year and won't be necessary this year, so we can make that reduction.
Excellent.
Killen building maintenance, Mr. Ernst thinks we can reduce that by 10,000. And then, of course, the transfer from surplus of 275 related to the compost facility operation. So all of that right now adds up to an even $500,000. The deficit we were looking at on Monday was 473, Mr. Barron. So that leaves us with a surplus of $27,000 on approximately $17 million budget. Not a lot of
Wiggle room.
cushion in that, I have
Yeah.
to say. And when you look at as I said when we started this, when you start looking at reductions in areas that are maintenance related, that there's an element of risk there, because a roof gets blown off or a furnace goes kaput or what have you, you really don't have much choice but to spend the money. Whereas if you make a decision on tree purchases that we're not going to purchase more than $2,500 in trees, it's very easy to control that unless you get carried away with the purchase order. So what I prefer to do is obviously to have a bit of cushion and to do it in a way that introduces less risk to the budget. And I think this is probably a fair compromise, but it's for your
Yeah,
consideration.
I think it's excellent. Deputy Mayor?
Your Worship, Jeff, what if we added 1 cent to our residential and commercial rate? That would show us, as you've indicated there.
So this was at the top of the spreadsheet, and you and I had a bit of a discussion yesterday about this, so I'll speak to it briefly here if you like. The discussion started with, I guess, kind of reflecting on situations that councils find themselves in where we feel that the tax rate can't go up because of the message that sends to the public is that we're increasing taxes. And yet we know ourselves that assessments have been falling in the commercial side, and assessments have been flat. It actually have been falling in the residential side, but for the cap space has kept it flat for us. And so in the long run, I think the goal is you don't want to increase the cost to the taxpayer, but there's a difference between increasing the cost to the taxpayer and increasing the tax rate. The tax bill that you actually see comes from the combination of assessment times the rate. So if assessment comes down and the rate stays even, then the cost to the taxpayer comes down. If however, assessment comes down and you increase the tax rate, then you can maintain, I guess, revenue stability from the town's perspective, and cost stability, I guess, from the ratepayer. So the question is how much does 1 penny mean on the residential and the commercial rate? Well, the rates right there are 174 and 445. 1 cent on the residential rate generates $27,852 for the town. 1 cent on the commercial rate generates $12,936. 1 cent to now Jerry and I did a little bit of quick math yesterday, and the average residential unit assessment in the town of Yarmouth is about $79,000. But we think the average, and we've seen this statistic somewhere else, the average single-family dwelling residential assessment is like $100,000. So 1 cent on your tax rate equals a $10 cost, $10 cost to your average homeowner. Okay, so that was basically the discussion, and this council or a previous council, Town of Yarmouth Council, has made some bold, progressive, and admirable decisions in the past around funding our amortization on our tangible capital assets. There was a significant tax increase about 9 years ago that allowed us to do that. We were far ahead of other municipalities, and in discussion with our municipal advisor, actually 2 municipal advisors yesterday, Jerry and I were talking about our fiscal policies, and the way they described it is ideal. What we do is ideal, and nobody else in the province is doing it. And there's no legislative requirement for them to do it, but what the comments to us about it was, it takes leadership, and it took leadership of the council of the day to put it in place, and it takes leadership to keep it in place. And we keep talking about it because it is so important from our perspective that it's there, and we want to keep telling you and telling the public how important it is, because it really is a foundation block around the sustainability of our town. And we see other towns, much smaller towns, in trouble today, and part of it is that they haven't carried the freight year to year on the cost of their infrastructure, whereas the town of Yarmouth for almost a decade now has been on the leading edge and operating in a way that Service Nova Scotia professionals look at as the ideal way to operate as a municipality. So that's my rant.
You're not allowed to rant, but thanks. He called it a rant. Okay, Councillor Dawes, you're up.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, but I think I may just share this opportunity with my colleague, with the deputy mayor, because I believe you have a direct a question directly relating to this. All right, and then if I may jump in afterwards. Thank you. After.
Councillor Mooney?
No, I'm leaving it up to
Jim?
I got to go in order.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll go on the
Okay, Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I know it's difficult suggesting an increase in the tax rate, but for all the obvious reasons that we see around the province with the different villages and towns struggling financially, this allows, as is presented this morning by Jeff, a bit more of a cushion, but also the extra $40,000 or $41,000 allows us a bit more flexibility in our budget, in our activity of the town throughout the coming year. So I would personally, as a councillor and as a citizen of the town of Yarmouth, and Jeff has indicated that it would be in many cases an extra $10 or $20 bill on our tax bill. I would like to suggest that we hopefully get an agreement to raise the tax rate 1 cent.
I know 3 people that won't. I don't know if Councillor Dawes was going to had a question after the deputy mayor or no.
Councillor Dawes, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. Oh, sorry. Back on. Thank you very much. Yes. Now, this has nothing to do with what you just spoke on. That's why I let Jim back in between. My question, please, goes back to sidewalk repairs. Up from page 18, the 25,000. Now, if we took 25,000 out of that sidewalk repair budget, and I know this is unfair to you, I know, but what does that actually equate to? how many sections, how many little square pieces of concrete would that affect that would not be, that would not be repaired or replaced for our residents? I'm thinking safety here. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. The answer to the question, if the question is how many blocks of concrete, how many meters of concrete won't be replaced that pose a safety hazard, the answer is 0. Because if we get to $125,000 just dealing with safety issues, then that is almost unprecedented. Last year, about half of the 125 went to things that were considered to be unsafe. Others went to cracked up or shattered blocks, but not necessarily trippers. So they weren't a physical hazard. They were just blocks that had deteriorated to the point that they were in need of replacement, but not for safety reasons. So if we spent $125,000 and we still had, let's say, 6 sections of concrete where we had tripping situations, we would replace them, because we have 2 responsibilities. I mean, we have many responsibilities. One of them is adhere to the budget, but the other is protect the interests of the town. And the interests of the town are not protected if we allow hazardous situations to exist that we know of for the sake of $100 or $1,000. We'll address those situations, and we'll run slightly over budget on the issue of safety. We'll run slightly over budget on that line item, and we'll make up for it somewhere else.
All right, good, thank you, because I see sidewalk repairs, and I don't know, I see too many, and I speak to too many residents that are dependent on getting around in town in their wheelchairs, and some of the little access ramps onto sidewalks for them are insurmountable. They're not really access.
Well, that's a design issue, if I may, Your Worship.
Certainly.
That is a design issue, and Councillor McIsaac spoke extensively about that on Monday and previous to that. You know, it is a design issue.
Yeah.
It is not a direct safety issue, but it is certainly an indirect safety issue, we'll say. So that is something that the engineer has done some work on some of our intersections, and will continue to do so. That is not at the same level as a tripper in terms of a priority. A tripper being a slab of concrete that's askew by 3/4 of an inch. That's our tolerance level. At 3/4 of an inch, it gets flagged for replacement. Okay, so if you walk down the sidewalk, maybe not when the frost is coming out of the ground, but when things settle, if there's more than a 3/4 of an inch lip,
All right.
we flag it, we tape it, we replace it.
All right, good, thank you. I just saw that, and not to pick on Communities in Bloom, I'm going to get crucified here, I know, but I see the tree planting, that was reduced down to 10 Communities in Bloom, if $5,000. I just think of sidewalks, safety, our residents out there, and Communities in Bloom. I would support adding another 5,000, or even half of that from Communities in Bloom onto the recommendations list. Thank you.
Good, okay. So, Councillor McIsaac, your
No,
light's on.
Councillor Mooney had his on first, Your Worship.
Yeah,
Wait a
Go
minute.
ahead.
yeah.
What?
Thank
Who,
you.
what? Well, I guess.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank
We're
you,
all on.
Jeff.
We're all on.
Excellent presentation and nice work, and I know Councillor Langell has done some homework, and he went over this line by line. I think this is a great compromise. I don't think in today's environment that we want to be sending the signal, even though it's only 1 cent, that we want to increase taxes for our commercial base or our residential people. Jerry and Jeff have gone over these numbers, and we've all looked at it over the last several weeks, and this is a great compromise budget. I know one year, Jeff, I think, wasn't our surplus, one of the years that I was sitting in the mayor's chair, didn't we have about a $6,000 surplus? Wasn't that the projected surplus for the year?
I think it was 8,900.
Was it 80? Something happened. It was 8,900, and we knew at those economic times that we had to tighten our belt. There's things in this budget that we could even cut further. I know some of the lighting projects. I'm not talking about the lanterns going down to Yarmouth South, but I'm talking about the Frost Park or the Candy Cane Lane. We're still doing things in doctor recruitment. We're still doing things for development in economics. We're doing, you know, with our economic development officer. We're still doing traffic lights. We're still funding our depreciation, which like we've stated over and over again, and I don't think the public really appreciates what we do. As a municipal unit, is the only one out of 53 units in the province of Nova Scotia that actually funds depreciation. I think we do a great job, and I think this budget, with everybody working around the table, has been a really, really good working document. And I think if we stick with it, I think we're at the bottom rung right now, Your Worship. I think assessments are going to increase over the next several years, and I don't think we're going to have to increase taxes this year. If we don't have to do it, I don't want to do it. And I don't know what anybody else thinks around the table, but it's sending the wrong message out to our commercial people and our residential people. We don't have to do it this year. I see the problems that are happening around the rest of the province with Hansport, Bridgetown, Canso, and we're not even anywhere close to that yet, but we have to keep our eye on our finances. And I know Jeff and Jerry, for the time that I spent working closely with them, every opportunity comes to save money, they look at it and they take that opportunity to do it. I know we've saved money with banking fees, phone fees, insurances, and every opportunity they look to save money that they're on top of it. So I'm comfortable with what's presented here. You can argue about some of the amounts on the recommendation, but I think this is a really good compromise and a really, really good start. And I think the citizens of the town of Yarmouth would really appreciate, even if it's a $10 bill or $5 bill. I don't think that's a message we want to be sending.
Thank you. Councillor Langell.
Well, hearing that word tax increase, I was going to say to the Deputy Mayor, if you want to raise the 40,000, we'll just give our stipends back, and that'll take care of that. We won't have to pay taxes on the darn things. I mean, that would solve some problems. I mean, to me, and I'm being serious, the concern that I have, and I agree with Councillor Mooney, we have run a balanced, tight ship for years, and we've got a signal here. And I commend Jerry. I commend, not only because it's his birthday, but I commend Jerry, his staff, and the town staff for what they've done in keeping this budget working. Of all our budget meetings, this has been the smoothest that I've attended, and I've been around this table for 8 years now. It's smooth. And the staff have looked at it. It's been a very proactive budget. I'm totally against increasing taxes. I agree with Councillor Moon. We don't have to increase taxes. I mean, really, we're working at something right now, and I think we're close to the mix. We do not want to put a message out that we're in trouble. To me, if you increase taxes, the message is we're in trouble. In other words, we need more money because we're not able to balance. And I think that is a wrong signal. We want this community to grow. We've got empty businesses downtown. We got empty storefronts downtown. We want to fill those storefronts. And one way to do it, I'd love to see us lower the rate. I'd like to go the opposite. I'd like to see us drop the residential and commercial if we could. But I know we can't, you know. Now, there would be a signal. Find another 40,000 and drop her. You know, and that's the sort of proactive thing we need to do, because then that would be, people would say, oh my God, here's a town that is succeeding. You know, that's the signal you're going to go when you're able to say that we've got a solid enough economic climate that we can do that. But we can't do that. On the Communities in Bloom amount, of all the committees of council that we have, and I sit on too many, this one is the cheapest that we get the biggest bang for the buck. And you're right, Councillor Dawes, they're going to throw rocks at you. I mean, for $15,000, this town is getting one heck of a bargain. It saves and generates thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars worth of labor, free labor, volunteers, coordination. A couple of weeks, we're going to do a cleanup, you know, of this town. We're trying to do proactive things. So I really have an issue with cutting Communities in Bloom. This committee has come to this council, asked for an increase, because we're doing so many projects that we've got on the go. We've got an agenda today that has close to 10 items on it, 10 independent projects that we're working on in that committee. And that, so to suggest, as you're suggesting, Councillor Dawes, to take that money, that additional money is going to take other projects away. How do you suggest, Councillor, that we fund those?
What is the 5,000 taking away?
5,000.
First of all, my question is this a question of 10,000 to 15, or taking the extra 5 that you asked for? I don't know.
I just want to know how you.
Okay. Councillor McIsaac, did you want to?
Thank you, Your Worship. I also disagree with raising the taxes, and it does send the wrong message. For the sake of $40,000, when we do have, it's showing a surplus here. This is just nickel and dime of the taxpayers. To me, that's probably 3 meals of macaroni and hamburger, maybe a glass of Tang, or maybe 3 trips to the hospital to pay for parking. You know, I mean, where I come from, or maybe some bologna heels from Eamon's, I don't know. But I do think it sends the wrong message. $10 looks better in my pocket than the town of Yarmouth's pocket, and I know everybody thinks like that. These other people that are having struggling times and everything, we're not in that category. We have a safe environment here. The taxpayers are well served with their council and their administrative staff, and that is a fact. I've sat around this table. This is my 3rd term sitting around this table. I had a relapse once, but this is my 2nd term. And like Councillor Mooney says, you know, this is probably one of the better working budget exercises that I've been privy to since I've been on council. I mean, it is running smooth. I mean, facts are facts, and they're here before us. We're very fortunate as a town that we have developers that want to develop lands that have been sold or ready to be developed. There's extra tax base that are coming in. There's things happening that are going to bring in extra revenue that are coming to Yarmouth. So let's not be too quick and too hasty to raise taxes. Now, a cent might not seem like much, but it is when you're on a fixed income. Let's wait till we really have to raise the taxes. We have a surplus. We have a surplus, and we have, if I'm not mistaken, we also have money put away. Jeff, am I correct by saying that? Close to $1 million or $500,000 that we have on hand. Am I wrong by saying that?
No, we have an accumulated operating surplus of 1.1 million, Jerry. Above and beyond that, we have reserves for operating as well as capital.
So, I mean, for nickel and dime the public and sending the wrong message, I would like to see this council not even consider that. It's nice to see that, but if you're going to do it, let's not pussyfoot around. Let's make it so it shouts out to the rest of the province that we want more money in our surplus. We want to gouge our residents. That's what we want to do, and we don't want any more development, because that's the message it would send. 1 cent or 10 cents, it's all the same to me. So let's not go down that road. Let's think more positive. We have things that are going to be happening in the town of Yarmouth, and there's going to be extra revenue generated. So let's wait till we get the extra revenue generated. Let's wait to see what fate brings us next year. And I can see it, lots of hope and prosperity coming, and we're in for some good times. Thank you, Your Worship.
And I know that Jerry and Jeff are the face of the budget process, but when I'm talking about Jerry and Jeff, I know it goes right through the whole directorship. I know Jeff's showing that kind of leadership. I know it goes from Dave to the new fire chief. So when I say point out Jerry and Jeff, it's the whole directors for the town of Yarmouth that are looking to save us money. So I might be remiss in saying the face of it's Jerry and Jeff, but it goes through the whole council.
Deputy Mayor?
Just a final comment. I think philosophically that we as a council may be wrong in not asking for an increase in the tax rate by 1 penny. However, hearing the response around the table, it was never my intention to make a motion encouraging a vote. And budget processes are usually, it's nice, it's important, I think, that if everyone agree to the recommendations as discussed, as different councillors have said over the past little while. I just feel we have increasing expenses in our operations, and even though we have reserves and et cetera, 1 penny in the overall scheme of things wasn't a lot. So I'm not going to make any more of a deal of it than that. Your worship and Jeff and Jerry, thanks very much for the